a lot of people complain about the enshittification of the internet, and very few people actually try to do something about it. So I thought, wouldn't that be cool to be part of something that makes something nice, useful, and good for the world? I live in Bielefeld in Germany. If you search things to do in Bielefeld, the very first hit for me is McDonald's. So like if you want to take your if you want to take your children somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Like that's not what you're looking for. Censorship, curation, and where you would like to strike the balance,
Yes. This is a tricky one.
it has to have some sort of income.
I have thought about the premium thing quite a bit.
I think it's really cool. I like the name Mumble. It's
Oh, I'm
cool.
glad you like it. Lots of people complain about it. So yesterday I spoke to Rohrig, also known as Full Stack Jack from YouTube, about Mumble, our open source and non-profit search engine. It was a very interesting conversation. Let's dive right in. Full Stack Jack from YouTube reached out to us on our Matrix server and asked if he could get involved, and he's already jumped in and created an amazing prototype for the native app. So very happy to have you, Rick.
Thank you. And it's nice to meet you as well.
This is literally our first conversation. We've had 2 minutes chatting before I hit record. So tell us a bit about you. What's your background? What are your interests?
I work in e-commerce as a solution engineer by day and look for side projects in the evenings. How I came to this project was I thought it would be very interesting to create a search engine, essentially what you've already been doing. I was just thinking of what could I do that would be impactful and fun, more fun, but also cool to use and not necessarily economically driven. It would be cool if people could live from it one day, but in general, something that I want to use, something that I would find cool. And then I saw Mwmbl. Of course, I didn't know what it was, like pronunciation wise, until I saw the little explainer. But I saw that and I thought, oh, well, I'm lazy. I'm a developer. I'll jump on this bandwagon and see where it leads. I looked at the front end and I came to the same conclusion some other people did, like, wow, that's not pretty, to be honest. Like, let's see what we could do. I don't really do Python. I'm not against it, but I've never touched it. So me jumping in there didn't make much sense. But since the front end looks like it needs work, maybe I could help there. And I saw that there's an alpha channel, so alpha.mumble.org,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
there was already some work going on there. Never heard of Matrix or any of those tools. So I made an account because I didn't know how else to contact you. And then either way, just asked if you guys wanted help. I already noticed that the API was open. So I just started like, well, they can't stop me from touching the API at this point. so I'll go ahead and see what kind of interface I can build. And I thought, well, having a mobile app would be awesome because
Yep.
most people do searching on their mobile device anyway.
Yep.
You could go to mumble.org, I assume, but I thought, no, we need an app.
All the big search engines have apps. I was looking at it today because I just use Firefox on my phone, right? But there's a DuckDuckGo app, there's a Bing app, so that we need to have an app ultimately.
Yeah. So it was pretty low hanging fruit at this stage. I thought, I'm sure I can build something feature equivalent to what's online front end wise relatively quickly. So I did that. It's not in production yet, but I've, got it working locally, hitting the endpoints. You can log in and all that. There's a very long list of features I want to add to it. So it's just right now very much POC phase.
So tell me a bit about why you're interested in the project, because I mean, yes, it's fun to make a search engine, but do you have more ideological interest in it, or is it just like
Yes.
something fun?
I don't want it to turn into a pure ideological thing, but for sure, I was talking about my wife with this actually. We were walking and I was talking about this exact thing, like where I land ideologically on these topics. That's actually a bulk of some of the things I wanted to talk about. More questions than answers, but also I have, my entire life wanted to do this since yesterday. That's so
Yeah.
I've given a lot of deep thought to these topics since yesterday. So ideology definitely plays a role. There's a quote: "The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is when good men do nothing." A lot of people complain about the enshittification of the internet, and very few people actually try to do something about it. So I thought, wouldn't that be cool to be part of something that makes something nice, useful, and good for the world, instead of just sitting around going like, oh, the internet could be so much better if it wasn't all about ads and if it wasn't all about, capitalist interest and things like that. So either way, that's like sort of the motive, because like Google works, right? Like it works fine. There's really nothing wrong with it. I use it every day for work. I use it every day at, privately. It works. It's not just, but I have a long list of feature sets that I would like to have. I'll give you one example. If you search right now, I live in Bielefeld in Germany. If you search things to do in Bielefeld, the very first hit for me is McDonald's. So like if you want to take your if you want to take your children somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Like that's not what you're looking for. Intent, I guess, would be the word. What does the user intend? What do they really want? What would make their day better? Me as a user and anybody else as a user. If there is a what you call bouldering, I don't know if you say that everywhere, but where you indoor climbing. It's literally less than a kilometer away from my home. I didn't know it existed. I put in things to do with children and it shows me McDonald's, which is even further away than where this climbing place is. And I thought, wow, this is just one prime example for me to go like, is this really the best way to experience search? And it's obviously not. Once I saw your project, then I saw this curation thing. I have a lot of thoughts on the curation thing, but it could be awesome. Like it depends on how it's used, but it could be amazing. Well, I was talking to my wife, she likes to bake. What if you're baking and you search recipes? Her complaint is, why are all recipes a novel instead of just the recipe? Did you say this or did I see that somewhere else?
I might have done that.
I saw that and I thought, this is true. My wife complains about that all the time. Like there's like 1,000 ads. All you want is a nice recipe, right? So jumping ahead a bit, one of the features I thought was, of course you can rank things and the cream can float to the top, but you could also make this like a premium feature where curated list, and the list can be voted upon. As an individual user, you can have your own list of curation. When I go to a certain site, kind of like Google Keep, you click to save. You save that in your curation list and can make lists out of it. You can publicly share those lists. People can jump on that bandwagon and say, this is a great list or it's not. So the good list will likely float to the top. There are concerns about how to ensure that that's not manipulated, like that it's not taken advantage of, because if it's just a numbers game, and especially when the project is young or, small user count, people could, just, hey, get 1,000 bots and then
we have that problem with curation. It's always going to be something we have to think about. So
there's definitely risks, but huge upside. Either way, you hit at least 80% of the things I was looking for. So I thought, okay, I'm going to start from scratch. If you're already hitting 80% of it, that's the fun part. The 20% I can help build.
Fantastic. I've got so many ideas as well. I basically want to solve all the world's problems with this thing. But for example, the idea that, I don't know if you know, there's some statistic about how many searches are done on Amazon, and it's some ridiculous proportion of search. Like Amazon is basically competing with Google at this point in terms of how many searches are done on it. And so I had this idea that we could automatically detect pages that contain products or items that are potentially for sale or not for sale, and like Airbnb as well, right? We can compete with all these, like potentially compete with all these things within a search engine. So if we were clever enough to know that when you're searching for a product, the items that are products, and we could rank them and we include star ratings and all those things, I've got tons of ideas of ways I want to improve it in the long term as well.
Yes, that's one of the major topics that I wanted to talk about, the e-commerce in general. I'll ask it as a question. How do you see e-commerce working? Obviously, it's a search engine, first and foremost, but it's also going to be long-term an app where you go to experience the internet. You go for your search, but if you want, for example, like you said, to get a response that is useful to you. So like if I'm searching for a bottle of water and I live in a certain place, my concern might be cheapest bottle of water I can get. My concern might be, what is the sustainability of the water that I'm getting? Is it locally sourced, environmentally friendly, in a glass bottle or a plastic bottle? How do you see?
I'm excited to hear your ideas, because I don't have any super clear ideas on what I want to do. The philosophy originally with Mwmbl was, rather like the big websites, they want to keep you on their search engine as much as possible, because the longer you're on their pages, the more money they
Mhm.
make, basically, because they can show you
Yeah.
more ads. So the philosophy behind Mwmbl was to do the opposite originally. The idea was that rather than showing you a big snippet from Wikipedia and you just get your information there and you don't go to Wikipedia, we just see a small link to Wikipedia. And the other thing that I really cared about was getting you to your goal as quickly as possible.
Yes.
So, for example, if you type something and it's very clear that you want the Wikipedia page for something, then in the autocomplete bar, instead of forcing you to go to a search results page, you'll go straight to the Wikipedia page. So that was the philosophy originally, was like trying to be a enabler of the internet rather than trying to like suck in the internet and be
Yeah.
the internet kind of thing. And so my thinking around e-commerce was basically get you to the page that's got what you need as soon as possible. Basically, that was my original thinking, but I'm totally open to other possibilities.
Yeah, that's a good start. But to make it a kick-ass user experience, it would be awesome if so we're not taking money from people, right? Ads wise, right? So ads don't play a role. That already opens up many possibilities of what you can do, because you're not beholden to one team or the other, just to the user, to the end user, right? So if there were, let's say, just dreaming here, a premium subscription model, right? Where of course you can use Mwmbl however you want, but if you would like a certain set of features, they're a paid version. And what that paid version could do is, we already have all of the data from the scraping to rank by price, and the user could set these filters however they want. If you're super cost conscious, then you would rank the price the highest. But maybe you're super environmentally conscious, and maybe that's more important to you than if you pay an extra euro or whatever on the product. So people could choose choose your own adventure. There will be sane defaults, but you could choose your own adventure as far as, this is what is important to me, and I don't want to do the work of sifting through all of these sites. I just want it to know what I want, know what my intention is, and just show it to me so that it saves my time, basically. So
yeah, absolutely. That was part of my vision as well, being able to filter on price and all that stuff. That's like, a lot of this depends on getting the crawling to the next stage, because we have to do the parsing of the page at the crawling stage. Because when we crawl, we don't save the whole page. That would be too much data. We're like trying to be cost effective. So we'd have to, at the crawling stage, analyze the page, extract all that metadata, and yeah, that's the tricky and costly bit. But it can totally be done now, especially with LLMs.
This leads me to a question that I had. What is the cost to run this now? I don't know if it's a transparent thing, but
yeah, it's absolutely transparent.
And how do you see that scaling? Have you thought about how to scale? Let's imagine within the next 10 years, we have 100 million users.
So this is the main thing that I thought about when building it. The cost now is basically the cost of the server, which is actually donated, right? We have a nice, it's not a huge server, but it's a 64 gig RAM, something like 8 CPU server or something. It's got like 2 terabytes of SSD, and it's great. Like it's got enough for where we are right now. I think that will keep us going for another couple of years at least. In terms of scaling beyond that, I've got a bunch of ideas. One option is to scale the machine. Instead of a 1 terabyte or 2 terabyte SSD, we could have like a 10 terabyte SSD or something like that. The other option is to use cloud storage, which I'm kind of reluctant to do. I mean, even though we can potentially get to a much bigger scale that way, it then ties us into a vendor, although there's now more flexibility. Being a lot of data is costly, right? So yeah, so I'm not entirely sure exactly which route we would take, but one of those two probably. And right now I'm kind of want to stick with what we've got for as long as possible. It's donated, it's free basically. So our only
Is this server just at home, or do you have it in a facility?
No, our donor, it's in our donors' facilities. It's Octopus. It's a French company. And the guy, I don't know if he's one of the owners of the company or the owner of the company, but he saw our project and just like want to help out and gave us the server, which is just fantastic. So we've had that for 4 or 5 years now.
You can't beat free.
No. Yeah. The other thing that I've thought about is whether we want to use like CloudFront or something like that, but I'm reluctant to do that as well because it's tying us into a third party and privacy concerns.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Keeping it as much in-house gives the most amount of control. I can see a future for both. Like there's plenty of, compliant clouds to where you have as much data as you have, as much control as you do on your local network. It all depends on how you set things up. But yeah, that's good to know that at least right now, it's definitely sustainable in its current form, because it's not causing you a huge bill. Another question I have is, I guess this is more on the ideological thing. Where do you land, or let's say as an organization and then maybe personally, both would be nice to hear, on curation, not versus, but let's say in addition to censorship, curation, and in general, where you would like to strike the balance between creating an experience that is nice for users, but at the same time, not imposing, if you will, any particular ideology or whatever on the users. Does that make sense?
Yes, this is a tricky one. I mean, curation, yeah, I think so. The way I've tried to do it is to be led by the community. And in a sense, I'm leading the community. So I'm also having my own personal impact on that, which I think is to be expected. In terms of censorship, we have tried to. So, firstly, we don't do anything not safe for work right now, because dealing with that is a bit of a nightmare when it comes to, like, people are crawling this stuff on their laptops, and we want to make sure that what they're crawling is not going to upset them in terms of content.
Yep.
Dealing with that whole space is a bit of a minefield. Blanket saying nothing not safe for work. In terms of other censorship, we kind of block anything that's obviously seriously far-right fascist type stuff. We haven't landed on exact guidelines yet, but this will be led by the community, I think. But it's not going to be like anything goes type of thing, like Twitter type style, or X as it is now. There's definitely going to be limits, but it's not going to be super restrictive either. So it's going to be balanced, basically, as far as I can see. And I don't know what you think about that.
I definitely agree with the X/Twitter sentiment. Talking to my wife about it, this is a topic that gets people pretty heated one way or the other. I really love the idea of not censoring, and basically whatever the law of the land is, if it doesn't break the law, then we don't censor it. That sounds amazing in theory. But in reality, my perception of what it leads to is a cesspool of degeneration. Like on X, I was never a huge user of it, but I would get on there mainly programming topics and things like that. But now, at least when I go on there, it's just absolutely nuts. It's not somewhere that I would want to spend all of my time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I want to make it very welcoming and friendly, because it's a community, right?
Yeah, I do worry when I hear words far right and fascism, because I'm American. Like, I live in Germany, but I am American, and I see how this rhetoric is used back and forth. It's the far left or the far right. As a search engine, how would I want it? I'm just thinking out loud at this point, but this not safe for work thing is genius. I didn't come up with that. When I was thinking about it, I came up with G-rated. For the non-premium version, it should default to safe for work. This is a very good starting point. I agree with it wholeheartedly. Maybe yours is better, because I was thinking G-rated. If I had my 6-year-old son and he typed in something, I wouldn't want him exposed to anything not good for a 6-year-old. That's a very high bar. But a sane one right now, the two extremes are, we will restrict whatever we don't like, even if it's not necessarily bad. I just don't like something that Republicans say. So we're going to make sure that we, deplatform everything. Or I don't like whatever a Democrat said, or whatever your flavor may be. That I wouldn't want to get involved, because then, nitpicking, every little scenario. One, it's impossible to do it well, but two, you can also silence voices that may actually have a point and other people wouldn't be able to see it.
Yep.
So,
and I should have been clearer when I said we don't want those things. I'm not saying that they shouldn't exist at all in the search engine. It's probably that they get ranked down. For something to be completely excluded, there'd have to be a very good reason, I think. Other than they're not safe for work right now. But if it's an opinion being expressed, then that should be allowed, I think. But
yeah, I don't know who searches such things anyway. If people do search it, if it was community driven, it's a hard topic. I even wrote this down because I wrote some notes before we met. The one thing that can be the guiding principle for anything is transparency. If something is ranked a certain way, how did you or the community come to this conclusion? And what exactly, because this shadow banning topic, one, it feeds into conspiracy theories. If you're going to, let's say, whether it be delist or derank or whatever, something, if there is a clear and concise thing, but this whole thing, like, which basically just helps whoever your opposition may be, or if you're not on a side, it just helps whoever is against the decision to say, ooh, it's dark and evil conspiracy theory behind the scenes. But if you say, this is exactly what you did that we don't like, and this is why it's being removed or whatever, then if they don't like it, you don't have to use it, right? No one's forcing you to use a certain thing, but at least we're honest about why. That's, to me, would be important.
I 100% agree. Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
you're right that it's a hard topic. We definitely don't have answers to all these questions yet. So
Yeah, I noticed
I'm glad that you're thinking about it.
Yeah, I noticed there was even a discussion somewhere on one of these threads where it was like a Free Palestine flag on the Alpha channel, and then someone was like, well, this is anti-Semitic, and then it was like, well, no, it's not. Even something so simple as, do we show something if we feel it's supportive to a certain cause? Do you show it? Do you not show it? This is the more making the sausage instead of eating it. I don't know. I don't have a great example, but this is not the part that and motivates me. Like, this,
It's definitely very, very, very important, but it's not easy at all. So,
yeah.
yeah.
I think if you focus on transparency and making an awesome user experience, then people can complain all they want about different topics, and you can address them as they come.
The good news is that there's Wikipedia that is essentially doing the same thing for encyclopedias. And so there's kind of a well-trodden path of how to solve these problems, which I think we can lean on to a large degree. Obviously, it's not exactly the same, but I think there'll be a lot of things that we can adopt from there.
That makes a lot of sense. You see a lot of weird stuff online, and some people think Wikipedia is curated in a way that they think is conspiracy. So who knows?
Right. Everyone's going to consider, whatever you do, someone's going to consider it biased, right? So,
yeah, for sure. And I think it's not bad to be biased. Just be biased in the way that you want.
In a transparent way.
Yeah, transparent. Okay, so ranking algorithm. Yes. I had two things on that. One is how to prevent exploitation. We already touched on commercial searches, but preventing exploitation is something. You have price transparency, which I think would be a great thing. User signals, up votes, down votes, people saying, oh, I had a great experience with them, could play into the rank. Voting, I guess that's similar to user signals, but user signals could be things where, I guess it depends on how you can track that. If more people linger on a particular site versus the other, I don't know if we would have access to something like that, but if it was anonymized, perhaps. And then
we could do that if it was opt-in rather than opt-out.
Yeah, that's great. Opt-in, and then obviously just pure curation. So where is it now? I kind of jumped in the deep end without really looking at it hardcore. Where is it now, and where do you see it going?
So we're at a transition point right now, because the old interface has this curation thing where you can order search results and what have you. The new one is not going to have that. It's going to have upvotes, downvotes, basically, which will be it's not that far removed from what we currently have, but it's not that you can explicitly order the result. The semantics are different, basically. So upvoting doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to go straight to the top. So it gives us more flexibility in terms of like the algorithm, in terms of how we incorporate those votes. Ranking as a whole, I have a project around that I'm kind of made a start on and then didn't finish, which is allowing anyone to come up with their own ranking algorithm and evaluate it against our data set, which I'm quite excited by, because if we could spark interest amongst the kind of hackers / research community around this, and like you have a ranking, you have a table showing this algorithm is at X or what have you. So that's a big project that I want to get underway, because right now the biggest problem is ranking. We have loads and loads of data indexed. I think we have sufficient data indexed to be comparable with some of the big sites on a decent subset of queries, not the long queries, but the short queries we should be competitive with, I think, if we had a good ranking algorithm. And that's where we're lacking right now. So that's the biggest priority from my point of view in terms of back-end stuff.
It would be really cool if when someone could, let's say, I think it's good and you should do it 100%, but there should also be a mechanism to allow users to pick a particular algorithm. So let's just imagine an amazing world, 100 different developers came up with 100 different algorithms. Of course, we would pick the best one to put as a default, whatever rose to the top could be the default, but maybe like another premium feature where people could choose, I want it slanted this way or that way. They could even mix and match and have sort of like a block style choice, allow people to manipulate those without necessarily knowing how to code. If we could build sort of our algorithm framework that could enable, this is just an idea, because in the end, the majority of users will not know how to code. So that would be, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's hundreds of things we can do, right? And it's just a question of like choosing the most, like, the hardest thing to do when running a project like this is choosing the most important thing to work on next. And the other hardest thing is not knowing what to work on next stop you from working on something.
Yeah.
Because
Yes, for
you
sure.
end up in the analysis paralysis thing, right?
Mhm.
I default to working on something even if it's not the highest priority. I try and think simultaneously about what the most important thing to work on is. Right now it's the ranking algorithm in general, and like for me it doesn't matter if not everyone can come up with a ranking algorithm, but if one or two people can make a ranking algorithm that's 10% better or 20% better than what we've got now,
Yeah.
then that's huge, right? So
Yes. Yeah.
enabling those people to do that is my top priority right now.
I'm sitting there thinking like, how do we make this work for everyone on planet Earth without coding?
Yeah. Well, the other thing is that in order to market this thing is the idea that we should be focusing on a niche of customers or users that are going to care about our product so much that they're going to use it over other things, right? So if we could be really good in a particular niche. So one idea is, for example, the idea that I had was to focus on development and specifically Python development because that's my area, so I can evaluate it if we're doing well at that. There are lots of potential niches we could do. Recipes, for example. There's all sorts of things we could do. I was thinking of focusing on that niche. I feel like if we do choose a niche, that will help us to accelerate our growth in the short term. In the long term, obviously, we do need to be able to do everything.
Very cool. I think this is one of those, I mean, you've been working on it way, way longer than me, but just from an outside perspective, this is one of those projects, like if you make it, they will come kind of thing. Like if you make it really good and the user experience is so good that it can't be ignored, people will use what's better to use. Once you have it really awesome, it's just a matter of marketing it to first, maybe like you said, a small niche and then expand from there. But I think there's lots of room for improvement in the industry. You're fighting against dominant players, but people are already using regular search less and less and using AI to search, which in many cases is not the greatest experience as well. Some cases it's awesome, but I thought about to pay to run the technology is one thing, but to make a project like I would call it truly sustainable in a capitalist world, it has to have some sort of income. You may be able to depend on donations for a certain period of time, but that's only proportional to the growth. If you want something that will take off and last for a long time and be a legacy product, it has to have some sort of income. What are your thoughts on that? And or do you only want it to make it free forever, or do you view some sort of premium thing like I was mentioning as being an option?
I have thought about the premium thing quite a bit. I'm reluctant to do that because of the goals of the project, which are to make the world's information accessible to everyone. If we do that, we're kind of in some ways having tiers of quality, which I like ideologically would rather avoid. If it's essential, it's essential. But I don't think it is essential because Wikipedia has solved this problem. They're funded solely on donations. Mastodon is entirely funded by donations. OpenStreetMap. So there are projects funded entirely on donations. So that would be my first preference.
Mm-hmm.
Having said that, I do think about the premium option quite a lot. I think if we did add the premium option, instead of getting extra features, you would just get kudos or something like that. Like it would be a meaningless thing. But from a point of view, like what we want to have is recurring revenue, right? And
Mm-hmm.
if we can get that via donations, then that's brilliant. If it turns out we have to add features in order for people to sign up and say, I'm not going to pay for this unless I'm getting something out of it. In some ways, I think people might be more likely to sign up if they're not getting something out of it. But I
Really?
might be wrong. Well, I mean,
We
I
live in
think,
a different world, like
well,
possible.
we have people already that are donating regularly, right? Not very
Yeah.
many, but like we have in the past had people, and like so people clearly care enough about the project
Yeah.
to donate. As soon as you make it a product, you're then beholden to deliver what you're selling. You have customer service, and you've got to deal with people's complaints and all those kind of things. Whereas if people understand that they're giving rather than buying, there's a whole different set of people that you attract, right? And different expectations.
Good point.
So yeah, I'm not going to rule it out. It may be necessary at some point, but I would prefer to avoid it if possible.
Maybe there could be a model where every feature is always free all the time and you cannot pay to sway the project in one direction or the other, but you can, it is a copyleft product, right? You can pay maybe to use the APIs to create premium products on top of it, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. So paying for APIs is definitely something that I want to consider, because that basically, when I say free, it should be free for end users.
Yeah.
And then API customers can definitely pay, because we're going to have to at some point rate limit the API usage. Right now we don't, but at some point we'll have to do that, and then we can offer a paid option for increasing the rate limits.
Before we go, I think it's really cool. I like the name Mwmbl. It's cool.
Oh, I'm glad you like it. Lots of people complain about it, so I'm glad to hear.
Yeah, spelling, I'm not sure I like it, but I'm weird. So I think
we have to be weird to work on something like this, don't you?
I thought about it, and I read it's the name of where you live.
Yeah, I live in Mumbles in South Wales, but in Welsh it's spelled MWMBWLS. So I removed four W's and the.
Hey, you were kind to take out at least one of those W's. I've never heard of the place, but once you have it in your head, it's unique. You won't forget it. It has that appeal. I remember the first time someone said Google to me, and I said, what? Now it's just a given that it's a great name. But back when you first heard it, you're like, huh? So it has that same effect, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. It's been a great chat, and look forward to catching up soon.
All right. Thanks.